The entry is one of those roles that everyone has to do at times, but only a few people actually understand. For the most part, people see entering as a sacrificial role, but in reality, if done well, you can actually hard carry your team to victory with it. What's going on, ProGuides fam? It's your host Kangas, and welcome to the 10th week of Improvement Saturdays, where each week we break down a key concept of FPS tactical shooters so that you can better understand Valorant at a higher level. This week, we're going to dive into the more specific aspects of Valorant and discuss the concept of entrying, and what an entry's goal should be. We'll also talk about why it's so impactful of a role and ways to improve your success when entrying. So hit that sub button and let's get into it. But before that, we got our question of the day. What's your favorite role on a team? My personal favorite agent role is Sentinels. I like playing further back rather than going for entry frags or aggressive plays, and I also like being the one to strategize with my team and kind of come up with what our game plan is. But let me know your answers in the comments below. Now, I'm sure everyone has heard of the entry role and probably knows the gist of what they do. Basically, the entry is the first person running in during a site take and is in charge of breaking open the defense from the front lines. Usually, you'll see duelists like Jett or Reyna pulled off this role, but that isn't always the case, since they might be dead or Jett might be omping. So having an entry isn't reserved for only a few players on a team, but can actually vary from situation to situation. So even if you mainly play a Sentinel or a Controller, it still helps you greatly to learn how to entry when necessary. Also, even if you don't need to entry, knowing how an entry thinks and plays not only helps you find better ways to support them, but also can help you find ways to counter them when you're playing on the defender side. But on that note, being able to learn about all aspects of the game is crucial for your development as a player, just like finding a mentor who can not only share their experience with you, but also teach you the secrets to improving fast. So if you ever want to find a mentor who can guide you in the right direction, make sure to visit our website, ProGuides.com, where our rating and Immortal level coaches are eager to turn you into the best Valorant player you can be. But anyway, now that we know what entry does hypothetically, it's probably better for us to just go right into the specifics and talk about the importance of being an entry, and also how they factor into a successful site take. Now, the first and most important responsibility of an entry is to create space for your team to work with. Since you're the first person in, your goal is to take as much control as possible so that you can give your team more room to work with, which also means giving the enemy team less room to contest you. The idea is simple, but it's pretty hard to pull off. Basically, you have to either bully your opponents to be scared of you and back off, or you need to take it straight to their face and take them out if they're not willing to budge. Either way, you're likely to run into a situation where your life is at stake and fighting is your only option. Now, there are a few reasons why creating space is such an important part of a successful site take. First of all, creating space gives your teammates room to breathe, because they have more options to spread out and attack from different angles. On the same note, it also pushes back the enemies, because they have less room to work with to contest you back. If you're fighting somebody who is already pushed up to your face or is threatening to fight you where you stand, then it means that his teammates can be anywhere behind them. Even if they aren't, you have to respect the possibility. Essentially, the front line just dictates how much control you have. Another reason is for the sake of breaking past choke points. Typically, site entrances are choke points that funnel attackers. For the most part, a defender's best chance of shutting down an attack is to take them out at that choke point, where the enemies are then stuck. But if they pour out of the choke point, then your chances are significantly lower. So an entry creating space by breaking through choke points without dying is hugely important to successfully taking sites. But a common misconception that people make when they think about an entry's job is that they're supposed to sacrifice themselves for the sake of creating space. While it is true that an entry is very likely to end up dying in the process of that site take, being alive is still pretty often a crucial part of controlling it. To demonstrate this, let's think outside of entries and consider the role of a lurker. When a lurker is on the other side of the map, even if they're not pushing into the enemies and taking fights actively, they're providing their team with a ton of information. The enemy is not at my position or anywhere behind me. So if you're lurking up B on ascent while your teammates are at A, they know that the enemies can't have pushed through B. But if your lurker dies to a push, every passing second makes that side of the map become a bigger question mark, and you no longer know where the enemies could be. This is sort of the same concept for entries. If you create space and make it hard for the enemy to kill you or deal with you, then as long as you are alive, the enemies can't push through, and your teammates have space to work with and set up with. But if you die while creating space, you could very well lose a majority of the space that you just created if the enemies decide to then push. So being an entry does not mean willingly running it down in the name of creating space. There is a delicate balance of creating space aggressively and also having a death wish. But that also doesn't mean that you have to be scared of taking advantageous fights. Basically, what we're trying to say is don't chase fights blindly. If anything, getting the opening kill is actually worth double compared to any other kill. I mean, think of it like this. Let's say that you're the entry. If you die at the first duel, then your teammates will likely trade you and it's an even match. But if you get the first kill, not only did you take one of the enemies out, you're also alive for the next fight as well, which means that if you take the fight to the next enemy and die, your teammates can then trade for that kill instead. Therefore, winning the first duel means getting 2 kills of value. Pair that with the fact that each kill means that you create more space and also take away more space from the enemies, and you'll quickly realize just how valuable being able to get a kill as an entry can be. But of course, don't just monkey into the enemies for the sake of fighting if you're already in a good position for success. Being alive is the most important part as long as you're creating presence and not baiting your teammates. So now that we know why entrying is important and the ground rules for what being successful as an entry entails, let's talk about the single most important tool of entrying that you can control, which is your pathing. While there's other things that can support your entry, such as flashes and utility, those are things that your teammates have to do for you in most cases. And in ranked games, you can't always rely on your teammates. As such, it's in your best interest to find the safest and most efficient way to create space, which means choosing a path that contributes the most towards your goal while isolating fights as much as possible. But in order of importance, the efficiency in creating space is actually more important than the safety. What this means is, once you know the most efficient route to take space quickly, then you consider what the safest way of taking that route looks like. For example, if you're attacking B site on ascent and you go straight to lanes as you entry, you're not doing your role properly. It's technically the safest path to take, but it achieves very little in actually creating space, and that's for a few reasons. First of all, you're leaving your teammates to deal with CT and market and stairs, which is very dangerous since they haven't made it past the choke point. Secondly, you're creating space towards the bomb site, but you're taking a fight separately from your teammates. While your teammates are fighting to get on site, you're taking a fight with a person potentially already there, and giving your teammates no opportunity to trade you if you lose. Third, you're not creating space for your teammates by pushing towards CT and securing that area so that your teams can fight with you. So instead of that, your approach should be to first realize that pushing towards CT and stairs is space that your team desperately needs for a successful site take, and then decide on the safest pathway to get there. So if your teammates smoke CT and market, then scaling towards stairs from the left and closing market doors in the process is the most efficient and valuable play to create space. After you reach stairs, your teammates can pincer sight with you through lane and stairs. If your teammates smoke CT but not market, then maybe it's better to scale under market side and isolate a duel with the stair player while your teammates deal with anyone trying to peek market. That way, you won't have to potentially deal with 2 angles shooting at you at once, which means that you're taking a safer route than when you went through the center. Now that's one example, but essentially the role of an entry is to adapt to any given situation and find the most efficient and safe way to create space for your team. A good entry needs to embrace the risky nature of being the first one in with stride, and then adapt their playstyle to create space while also not being scared to take fights when necessary. But of course, everything is in moderation, so you need to find the perfect balance of aggression to create the most impact for your team to succeed in a round. So at the end of the video, what do y'all think? Have we helped you set a clearer picture of what being an entry is? Let me know in the comments below, and also any feedback for us to improve these kinds of videos, and also any other ideas for future ones. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, it really helps us out, and also make sure you sub to the channel so you can keep up to date with all of our daily uploads. That's it for the video, everybody, so best of luck on the grind, and I'll see you in the next one.